truth? Are you tired of being so confused? You feel like you're more fucked up than the lies on the evening news. Well, just step right in. We can talk about it all as friends. And if you want, we can hug and kiss and make up for the party ends. Agree or disagree, start unfriend me.
Can't see it.
'Cause I'm everything you want, damn sure what you need. I won't tell no lies, back up all the facts with truth. And if you can't get down with that, you must be somebody's dad.
Check out my buddy Matthew Spear over there at the Dumb Show. Dumbshow.com. Get to see people like yours truly right here. Maybe that's a reason for you to not check it out. But check it out anyway. There's a lot of people better than me on there that a lot better stories. But check them out. Dumbshow.com. Matt, take care, buddy. God bless you, everyone.
Adjusting transmitter output.
This is the Don't Unfriend Me Show with your hosts, Matt, Leeroy, Amy, and Olivia. Geopolitics, military analysis, and election coverage. Coming to you live on all major social media channels at The Dumb Show. Honest, direct, unfiltered. We can agree, we can disagree. Just don't unfriend me.
Oh, green screen. We're supposed to put that on this thing. I forgot. I changed your window. Let me fix that. Sorry, Leeroy. Didn't mean to. Select transparent. There it is. Leeroy's back. Kinda. It's a little soft. Yeah, it's a little soft. Hold on. Fade level. Oh, too much. It's a little dark anyway. That's fine. It's good enough.
In there, yeah.
Welcome to the Don't Unfriend Me Show, everybody. Hopefully, you guys let me know if you can hear Leeroy, because you might need to turn it up because we changed audio channels. Leeroy, go ahead and say hi to everybody so they can see if they can hear you or not.
Hey, everybody. How's everyone doing? Happy New Year. It's good to be back. We're going to have a stellar 2026.
I think you're going to be good to go. I think you'll be good to go. The one thing we need to do is your backdrop. I figured something out. See how it's like dark green in the lower corners and then it's like super bright in certain areas? If for green screen to work, it's got to stay bright and all behind it. So it needs like a backlight. So when we decide to do that.
Oh, I can do that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I've got a special light for it so it doesn't change the green tonality, and we'll get it all good. You know what I mean?
All right.
So does Leeroy and I sound the same though, right? Is what we're saying? We're sounding the same. It looks like his arm is basically, playing.
Sorry.
No. I was actually enjoying it. It felt lovely. I want to make sure his voice is exactly in tune with mine, that we're the same level. And if that's the case, then we should be good to go. A little bit different of a night tonight. We're going to be doing something. I've been hinting around this, that the live show is going to kind of change, and it's going to stay the same in the sense of how we talk and how we interact with the audience, but we're going to change the overall fluidity of it, and there will be more alacrity in the overall speed of the show, but in the sense that it's 2 hours, but there'll be a range of topics, and we'll definitely be able to absorb anything that happens breaking, and we'll probably be able to segue into some different things. But instead of just flowing on Twitter, we want to make sure that the videos are they're loaded, they're ready to go. It takes a lot of work, but I've dedicated an extra hour of my night in the live show to set up the cells to kind of have them going back and forth and back and forth. Is that an AI Leeroy in the studio? No, it's him behind a green screen, and if we can get that green screen working, he can float in that one image and we can put him in there. But anyway, so real quick, we've got $300 on the board. It lets you guys know for the donations tonight. We are going to be moving fast. So what I don't want to do is stop the show and talk about donations. Like, we know we hit it every night. So it's just presumptuous for me to say, let's just get them in. Like, let's just get them in as quickly as we can so we can continue to move forward and not talk about it. Leeroy, do you have anything you want to add?
No, again, I'm just happy to have made it into 2026. This is going to be a really stellar year as far as I'm concerned, and we're going to make it that way.
Yes, well, that's the goal. So Trump, Venezuela. Listen, you weren't here. I broke it down last night. I walked through with a full strike from start to finish with a little bit of, like we always do with the B-2 bombers. We had some insight that the news media wasn't talking about. I did the same thing, like that they put up, flares around Venezuela to illuminate it completely 100% for any type of ground traffic. So the ISR could see it. They could see any man pads. They could see any, people holding RPGs. The amount of aircraft that it took to do this from a numbers standpoint was absolutely astronomical. From refuelers, from Ospreys to UH-64s to Chinooks they had everything, to F-35s to F-16s running any type of bleed out or squirters, so to speak, from aircraft or opposing aircraft if they wanted to launch any of their SUs or anything else that they would have. I mean, it was just, we broke it down. But tonight we want to kind of dive into the why behind it, and also want to get your perspective. So I will let you go ahead and talk a little bit about that, and then we'll dive into some of the videos.
Yeah, that sounds good. So first of all, why did we do this at all? Well, as it turns out, it was President Obama who signed an executive order that declared the situation in Venezuela under Maduro as an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security and the foreign policy of the United States. Maduro, basically, his opponents, when he was running for president, his opponents won 70% of the vote, and then he just simply refused to leave. So he was an illegitimate president to begin with. So anybody who says that, oh, well, we just kidnapped a president. No. What we did was kidnap a political tyrant. And this guy's tactics have been well documented. He's been heavily invested into the drug trade and several other nefarious, money-making schemes. I think that for the people who seem to be celebrating this, which is most of Venezuela, that we have come to their aid, and in a manner of speaking, we've come to liberate them from a dictator, and I think that's where this story should end. It was a good deal.
So do you think any proverbial, as a libertarian as you are, do you think any proverbial lines were crossed from a standpoint of using military action from the president, number one? Or is this covered under 1973 in the War Powers Act? Is it covered under Monroe Doctrine when it comes to expansionism in the United States? Is it covered under international and maritime law? Or is this forced extradition? And is this something where, you're setting a tone that the president of the United States is fair game? Not that anyone could perform what we did. And I think we could probably perform this in just about 90% of the countries around the world, minus, a top few with militaries in the top 10. But right. Are we setting a precedent that we are okay with invading another country? And does this give China carte blanche to do the same thing to Taiwan? And does this also firm Putin's resolve in Ukraine?
Well, are the Taiwanese people, are they being actively suppressed by their leadership right now? Or are they actively being suppressed by China? Have they been threatened by China, or have they been threatened by their Taiwanese leadership?
Yeah. Is that rhetorical, or do you want me to answer the question?
No. That was rhetorical.
Oh, well, I'd like to answer it then. So I'm going to strike the rhetorical because I don't believe in the premise. China, the argumentation is that Taiwan is invalid in its stance that it is a separate entity from China. China claims Taiwan as its own and its own province and does not recognize its government. Now, whether you agree with that or not, or I agree with it, is immaterial, but the argumentation here is much different than what Maduro was doing. Maduro is a convicted narco-terrorist, was not elected in a duly elected process, was starving his people, has been a tyrant and a dictator. And no, Taiwan is not those things, but I don't believe that was the qualification. I think we're muddying the waters a little bit, but go ahead.
A little bit, but I think my general premise, because as Matt alluded to at the very beginning from my libertarian right hemisphere, I always tend to view these kinds of things as, are the people of a said country looking to escape from it, or are they looking to immigrate to it? Because if they're looking to escape from it, chances are you've got a pretty strong dictator that's at the helm. Maduro undoubtedly was that, unqualified. That's the category that he finds himself, not unlike Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping has several times in the past had members of his own cabinet executed when they brought him bad news. He is also a dictator. Now, can you say the same thing about Venezuela? Or I'm sorry, not Taiwan. No, you can't. Venezuela has several, global market entities that is willing to engage in free and open trade. That is not what China is doing, and that is not what Venezuela was doing.
Keep talking.
And in the meantime, I think there's a lot that's going on with the threat of these shadow, the shadow fleet. For anybody who doesn't know it, it's a series of tankers that Venezuela and China and Iran use to operate so that they can import oil or export it. And that's how they fund a lot of their activity. So when people are talking about this idea that the U.S. is taking this oil because we want it and we're going to use it, and that's just going to make us that much more wealthy, we don't use their type of oil. Venezuelan oil is what they call a heavy sour, and 99% of our refining has been retooled to be a light sweet mixture. So we largely don't even use it. The destination for Venezuelan oil was largely China and Iran, and that's where a lot of the funding was being generated to engage in other wars.
So sorry, we tried technical stuff. Okay, so make sure I understand, because I didn't get to hear a lot of that because I didn't mute my mic because I was talking to Olivia trying to fix the TVs. So sure. Did we set a precedent that this solidifies Putin's claim on Ukraine, which states that Ukraine is in violation of Russian sovereignty and Russian establishment as a country, that Ukraine, they've been fighting a civil war there and is separated from Russia illegally? And do we recognize that, does this solidify China's claim against Taiwan that they are a province that has broken off of China illegally? And the reason why we ask that question is because when Donald Trump makes the comment, hey, we went in and we're running it, Venezuela is ours. That's essentially what he said. Right. He stuck a flag in the country and said Venezuela is now ours. He essentially annexed Venezuela. And if that's the truth, and I don't think it is. I think that's Donald Trump saying we are going to be an integral part in the solidification of this regime, doing some basic things that we need. One is ensuring that oil companies from the United States have a chance to drill and purchase oil, that you're no longer going to aid our enemies in Iran, China, and Russia. And that you're going to act accordingly with dumping illegal immigrants and also drugs into our country. If these things are met, then we will be all happy in Shangri-La. Do you think at any way, shape, or form, because you saw Colombian president contact the UN and say he wanted a UN Security Council meeting, and he wants to lay the groundwork for what very well could happen to him next, or the Mexican president, if they do not comply with the same expectations that the United States put upon Venezuela. So do you think this is some constitutional stuff? Because Democrats are crying like crazy. This is horrible. This is evil. This is a regime change. This is an empire. This is imperialism. I mean, oh my God. So your thoughts, do they have any credence on that?
No. And I completely disagree with the idea that Taiwan belongs to China or that Ukraine belongs to Russia. That was settled back in 1990. That paperwork was drafted and signed back in 1989 and 1990. And this idea that Venezuela was a sovereign country when they didn't even have a legitimate president, and 80% of the income was by way of illegal means. So no, I don't buy that.
Yeah. So, and the reason why Leeroy says by illegal means is because their oil productivity and their mineral exportation is a shit show, and the infrastructure from the discipline of moving product from point A to point B, accepting payment, distribution, manufacturing, production, and shipping is a joke. So South America.
I talked about the shadow fleet while you were fixing.
Good. And so what I want people to understand is that when I'm asking these questions, it's not because I believe these things. I'm asking these questions is because these are the things in the argumentation that you're hearing from the left. This is the problem. This was the best way for you to look at it, and the only way you should look at it is very similar to Manuel Noriega. In fact, it's identical to Noriega, and also was anniversaried on the exact same day as Noriega, along with the Soleimani killing, which is just beautiful. Correct. January 3rd, separated from 1990 for Noriega, 2019-20 for Soleimani, and then 2026 for Maduro. But so when we look at this was a police and military action to interdict into a sovereign country with a dictator, despot leader, narco terrorist, a threatening nation within the proximity of the United States, that we were going to execute a warrant for his arrest, and could not be done because of his status in the Venezuela government as a president, with the military buildup that they had around him, with the safety and security that they had, and that he essentially was the HVT for the country because of the influence that he's had with the cartels, that we could not do this without the military. This would have been an absolute bloodbath if we tried to execute a warrant with the DEA or something like that. Jeff Oliphant donated $20. Let's get it going. Thank you, Jeff.
Let's get it going. Thank you, Jeff.
So this is the execution of a warrant. What Russia and China propose to do, Russia is doing and China is proposing to do, is to, by military and expansionism, overthrow the current legitimate governments in Taiwan and Ukraine, essentially to bring them back under the rule of these two countries, which would be illegal. So they're not the same thing. They're completely different. The argument you can make, but it's usually a shallow-minded person that would make that argument, and that's what you're hearing from the left right now.
Absolutely. I think that the left has to capitalize on several ideas that we're going to go into a little bit more in depth into the show. As we start talking about the values that have kind of made each party what they are right now, one of the common themes throughout the left seems to be victimhood, and how can they use a situation that they want to control and then call it a crisis.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So Carrie asked the question, who do you think will be the next one? Cuba, Mexico, or Colombia? It depends what you mean by next one, because those are all very different problems. Colombia is very similar to Venezuela, with the Colombian president being a narco-terrorist and ties with the cartels. Mexico is different because there's multiple parties, multiple levels of government inside Mexico. And you have a rival military that is one of the top 15 size standing armies in the world with the Mexican cartels. They're incredible. And then you have Cuba, which is more about an economic issue when it comes to they're under economic collapse because of socialism and essentially caught into the 60s with their infrastructure and everything else, their roadways, their bridges, their technology, because constant embargoes and trade issues because they're a communist country. So they're very different. I believe Cuba will ultimately be in a state of flux until it does collapse economically. I think Colombia will have to have some, once they, how hard we go into Venezuela, and what we do is what you consider, I'll show you a video real quick that'll answer this question, and then we'll come back. We'll talk about that. But I think Mexico ultimately has to play ball, because if Mexico loses us as a trade partner, that is not good for Mexico. And it's just the same result as Canada. Let's watch this video. It's gonna help us with the conversation, and then we can move on to some other conversations about this. This is what we hear about Donald Trump all the time, that he's playing 4D chess. I want people to understand is that there's no such thing as the fourth dimension. Okay, from a theoretical standpoint, from a physics standpoint, and metaphysics, yes, but we don't have the capability to penetrate the fourth dimension. So when people say he's playing 4D chess, it's kind of a stupid thought, because basically he would be playing inside the pieces themselves, or inside the board, or through the areas that he could not see.
It'd be like Dr. Manhattan in the movie Interstellar.
Right. So exactly, he would just enter the other person's. Okay. So here is the 4D chess claim. This is a good video, and some of it's true. The title of it is Close but No Cigar. Watch this.
After capturing Nicolas Maduro and transporting him to a U.S. federal prison to face charges, Trump announced the U.S. will run the country until a safe transition is possible. But what if the U.S. never leaves? The Petro reset breaks OPEC's global price monopoly. By seizing Venezuela's 300 billion barrels of oil, the world's largest reserves, the U.S. crashes gas prices to a historic $1 at the pump. This logistics miracle slashes shipping costs by 70%, cutting the price of groceries and goods by 30% overnight. Inflation vanishes as the energy tax is deleted, triggering a surge in domestic manufacturing. The currency collapse is solved by replacing the bolivar with the US dollar, stabilizing cost while zeroing savings. As a migration reverse brings 7.7 million refugees back to rebuild $400 billion in decaying infrastructure. The Southern Command expansion dismantles gangs and rebels, cutting crime by 90% as Venezuela becomes a de facto 51st state. This superpower pivot evicts Russia and China, freezing $60 billion in debt and granting the U.S. total military and economic hegemony over South America. After capturing Nicolas Maduro and transporting him to a U.S. federal prison to face charges, Trump announced the U.S.
Is that all? Oh, that's easy. First of
all, that's a lot to unpack.
I'm going to hit one right away. Gas is not going to be $1, because if gas goes to $1, then people are going to stop drilling, and people are going to stop manufacturing and producing oil. If oil drops down to that $50, $60 a barrel, we've seen what that does, and what happens with the economy. A healthy oil market and cost per barrel is essential. Anything over $110, $100 is way too high. Anything down below 60 and 50 is way too low. Let's get that $88 sweet spot, which everyone seems to love. The whole point is an abundance of oil will drive down energy costs, not a market which is starving for it, where we pay more for oil and bring it into our country and don't manufacture it ourselves. Two, when it comes to oil, and then I'm going to hand the rest over to Leeroy, is we don't care about the oil so much as we care about the 4% that China doesn't get because of this, which ultimately could cripple their country. The fact that Russia and China have been expelled from the region, at least for the interim, until they establish their government, and if they want to go ahead and continue to push the United States, then the neighbor that's very, very close with the big stick, or the 2 or 3 neighbors away that have big voices but don't carry that stick, is going to be up to Venezuela. But that 4% deal that China was making for their oil is going to be a massive blow, considering that Russia, their supply is delineating from bad to worse, and has been the longer they stay with Ukraine. This is going to hurt China energy productivity for their expansions that they want to make, fueling their vessels, which are not nuclear capable, which are all oil and gas and diesel ran. These things put limitations on their military might. because you can have the greatest military and fleet in the world like the Japanese did, but if you don't have oil, it don't mean shit. And this is why they hit Pearl Harbor. Leeroy, what else in the video? And if you want to go ahead and touch on that.
So real quick, in this book, The Accidental Superpower by Peter Zion, he points out that several years ago, more than a decade, the United States had switched over most of our refining to use a light sweet mix of oil because a lot of it was coming from the shale boom at the time. Venezuelan oil is not light sweet. It is heavy sour, and we can't even use it. Most places in the United States cannot process it. So really, the question of whether or not we could use it at all it isn't a question at all. It's all right, who are they selling to? And that's why we know that places like China that import more than 80% of their energy, or Iran, or, this is where a lot of that shadow fleet takes place that I was talking about earlier. This is more of a poker chip in that pool. And by interrupting that oil flow into China, this is far more of a bigger deal for China than anyone realizes. In the last, I don't know, 2 months, the Chinese housing market has collapsed more than 80%. More than 90% of their EV manufacturing has collapsed. A lot of their banking has started to collapse. And so you start messing with their energy, which is the lifeblood of any nation. Guess what? They are spiraling down the toilet quick.
This is the same argument that we heard about the pipeline.
Oh, yeah. Nord Stream
1 and Nord Stream 2. Nord Stream 1 is still active and has been. Nord Stream 2 being the fact that was not completed. Now, everyone's like, this is why oil prices were high. This is such a myopic and an idiotic look. This is tar sands oil coming from Canada. This is extremely heavy crude oil that would be processed overseas as well. It's not that this won't be effective. It's not that they don't have reserves, but the quality of diamonds and the quality of oil are similar in the fact that a cloudy diamond isn't going to sell, and oil that can't be produced easily by most of the refineries in the United States is also not going to be beneficial to the U.S.
Right.
The fact that China has these capabilities is because that's all that they have at their fucking disposal. The United States is very, very, very well off. We have the largest clean oil reserve in the sense that not
Correct.
clean, but easily processed in the world. So although they are extremely rich in South America with oil, and although it is very, very lucrative and we can make a ton of money, it's not necessarily the 300 billion gallons of oil. Right. We're gonna put in some frickin' some oil pumps and everyone, or oil wells, and everyone's gonna be rich. It's not it. These companies like Exxon, the companies like BP, everybody else who's involved in this will have to come in and process this oil or negotiate the transfer by cargo this oil to refineries that can do that and then sell it on the market. So that's the biggest thing, is that South America is like, this is too much of a headache, too much work, and they've let their infrastructure go to shit.
Right.
That's the issue. Go ahead, Leeroy.
They can also mix it, and it's a more expensive prospect. Normally when you introduce the idea of, hey, we can buy Venezuelan oil and mix it with Canadian oil, and then we can process it that way, that usually comes at a detriment of the original exporter because of the amount of additional labor and expense that goes into changing that. So usually when you have that kind of thing happen where, okay, we can't use Venezuelan oil as it sits, so we have to do more stuff with it in order to get it to work with our systems. Usually that means that we have to take it at a much greater discount from Venezuela. Now, Venezuela had been doing that for China for years. It was something like 30% off because it was most of it you don't get to use during the refining process. It's that bad of an oil.
But see, the people people assume that oil is graded as all the oil because it's in this geographical region is bad, and all of this in this because it's in this geographical region is good. So if it's in the U.S., Alaska territory area, or lower parts of Canada, or if it's in the Middle East, it's all great oil. That's not the way it works. The oil pockets and the oil reserves and the oil essentially the taps that are underground, the level and quality of that is variant degrees based upon time, based upon the integrity of the pocket. There's temperature. There's so many different variables.
Shale oil. Yeah.
Right. And then there's different types. So when we say South America, oh, it's all tar sands, it's horrible. No, it's not true. They do export a ton of energy and a ton of oil and have that capability to do so. And to say that the purchase amount from China was negligible is absolutely not true. Somebody just put that down. That's not, it's 4% of their overall productivity. That is a massive amount. I'll give you some idea. Joe Biden had 9% of our oils. We shifted, 3.5% and started buying overseas oil. What happened to gas prices? 3%. Now, we consume a shit ton of oil, but so does China. 4% of China's overall consumable is a massive amount of energy. So I want us to make sure we understand it's not that South America is completely, you got bad oil, we got good oil. That's not the way this works. It's a different type of oil, and there are different pockets of oil all over that country, and there are high producing wells, and then there's low producing, and then there's some that don't produce at all and need to be sent out and manufactured properly. This is what was supposed to happen with the Nord Stream pipeline. It was supposed to go from Nord Stream 2. It was supposed to go through the water table, up through the Midwest, North Dakota, etc., come down and then hit in Houston and be able to be processed and shipped out overseas. That is no longer something that's going to be taking place. At least, from my understanding, Donald Trump promised to restart the build, but it really doesn't help us. It's a dollar thing. It's not necessarily an energy thing. Okay? Good. This is what we're talking about. Would it behoove Venezuela to build a refinery to process their own oil? No, but it would behoove American companies to do so, which would then also give us, if you think about this, it helps us solve the Nord Stream 2 problem. Because then instead of sending it over to Europe or sending it over to Africa or sending it over to some other place that actually processes this oil, we get to take it directly to Venezuela, which is right below the United States. Houston to Venezuela is what? How many hundreds of miles? Only a couple hundred miles, right?
Houston to Venezuela?
Yeah, Houston to Venezuela. South America. Only a couple hundred miles, right? So,
I would think
well,
it's
Cuba's
1,000 miles, right?
No. Really?
Yeah.
No, I would doubt
so.
that. I don't know.
Hold on, let's check this.
Maybe I'm on drugs. Northern Venezuela. No, make sure.
To northern Venezuela.
Is it that far?
Yeah.
Wait a second.
2000.
What am I thinking? What the hell? Hold on a second. What am I thinking? Am I thinking Panama? Oh, I'm thinking Cuba. Oh, I'm thinking off the coast. That's only like 30 miles. That's Cuba to Florida. I apologize. Yeah, I'm a dipshit. It's actually 2,500 miles.
Yeah, that's a fair.
Let me look at that
Yeah.
again. Let me look at that again. You know, because it's interesting. Oh yeah, that's a trek. I mean, it's almost as far as the United States is wide. So that is a far way. But where are they doing tar sands? Where are the refineries now? They're not in South America, are they? Because I thought they were going to take it and ship it overseas, over to the Orient is where the oil was going to go from the Nord Stream.
So what's interesting is we were talking about the quality of that oil, and you can have it mixed all over the place. So between Argentina and parts of northwestern Brazil is the largest chunk of global shale reserves on the planet.
Mm-hmm. Where's it processed right now?
What, the Argentinian stuff?
No,
Not sure.
Tar sands oil. There's not many places that can do it.
Like, you mean up in Canada?
Yeah.
Because that was a big reason for so I don't know if anybody remembers, but when Biden shut down that pipeline that was supposed to go from Canada to the United States, it was so that we could get more access to Canadian oil.
Yeah.
The Canadian oil, and we were there like, they need our market because theirs is, again, it's a little bit of a heavier oil that is just so much easier process when they can just mix it in with ours.
So the refineries, I know Houston processes, and I know there's some Midwest that process, but there's specifically some in the Orient that actually, listen, I know I just thought that Venezuela was a couple hundred miles off the coast, Freudian slip, whatever it was. Didn't mean that. That was in my head. I apologize. I was thinking Florida Keys to Cuba, which I don't know, is like what, 60, 90, 100 miles away?
It's like 90 miles, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So that's what I was thinking. Venezuela. You got to remember, we're talking about a lot of countries here. But Venezuela, even at that distance away, Mel, we're not taking calls. We'll call back in just a minute. Even with that distance away, you would take that by ship, but a lot of that would be processed in Houston. So you got to understand a two-way process. You open up Nord Stream, it allows it to be processed in Houston, but also open up through fare from Venezuela into Houston, bringing their oil to those refineries as well. So it's kind of I guess a double strike and a positive. Yeah. I'm trying, honey. I got a lot going on. I got a million things going on right now. I'm trying not to crash at the same time. So I got phone calls coming in. Can you tell Mel to hold on, please? I missed a text. Joanne Townsend, $10. Thank you, Joanne. I appreciate it. Do apologize. New format's kind of thrown with me. Thank you, Matt and Leeroy. We appreciate it. All right. So Venezuela has refineries. Paraguay refinery complex is the largest, right? But the problem is these refineries have been labeled as inadequate to do this. This is one of the problems and why the United States is there. Yeah, so they have refineries in South America, but a lot of these are obsolete, out of date, and because of 15, 16 years of the regime not feeding their people and taking the bottom line dollars, it's not like this guy has been investing into infrastructure and taking care of the country the way he should. I mean, this is from roadways to bridges to water treatment facilities. So this is where the United States is getting involved. Once again, if South America was doing what South America should be doing, the United States probably wouldn't have to get involved in this. So the question is, as far as this type of oil, what's the benefit except for having the United States process it? Is it still a lucrative form of energy? Mel was calling to probably chime in on that. Mel, you can call back. But that's the real question, is what's the yield? If the cost to make it outweighs the benefit of what it produces, then what's the point? And it sounds like this stuff is all about volume and not necessarily adding, thousands of gallons of barrels a day. It's about doing mass volume quantities of this type of oil. And would it be beneficial to do so? I would have to assume it would be, or we wouldn't be talking about building pipelines. Venezuela wouldn't have these refineries to begin with. But we'll wait for Mel to call back and we'll see what she has to say. Anything else on the video that strikes you as, except for making it $1, the bullshit about making it $1 a gallon? Was there anything else that struck you as interesting?
No, not really. But then again, I think you and I tend to look at these types of videos from a little bit of a different perspective because we have a little bit of a better, more developed filter to say, okay, well, that statement's bullshit or that one's true, right? And so we can run with that. Maybe there's some truth to 80% of it, and then there's 20% of it that is like, I'm not sure, guy. So we have that filter that we can do. Yeah.
And considering that we give a shit about the petrodollar, we haven't been on the petrodollar for a while, so. That was after Trump's first presidency, and Biden went ahead and ruined that relationship. So, listen, this has something to do with oil. This has, people say this has nothing to do with drugs. There's a warrant. We executed the warrant. He is now going to be tried for these crimes. You can go ahead and say it was all because of oil. I completely think that the narrative that the oil will be as productive as we anticipate it to be anytime in Trump's presidency or possibly in our next decade, I think is unrealistic. And for anyone to think that we did this all because of that oil is also unrealistic, equally unrealistic. Mel, go ahead. You want to go ahead and say what?
No, I agree. This was not about getting the Venezuelan oil. What I wanted to chime in on, because there's lots of people in the chat going, oh, well, the dirty Canadian oil. I'm like, no, like, the narrative has been skewed by Leonardo DiCaprio and Jane Fonda and whatever about the tar sands. Well, the tar sands is not the only source of oil in this country.
Right.
We have other pipelines and whatever, and we've been pumping oil out of our ground for a really long time. That is what I'll air fingers quote what everybody conceives as normal oil for a really, really long time. So to say that the tar sands is our only source and we're sending this dirty oil, well, no, the tar sands was a project, whatever, that was done by and invested by a lot of American companies in Fort McMurray that started that whole evolution. And Houston processes it. They built a special whatever to process it and instituted the pipelines to get it to their facility. And it does have the oil extracted out of the whole whatever. It's just another process. It's not.
Well, it's just.
I'm tired
more,
of this.
It's more
dirty oil shit.
No, it's more according to the Green Dicks. It's more it's more environmentally strenuous to produce. That's the comment, and it is. I mean, it is a different process, but it's not unsafe once it's refined. The process of refining does create more emissions than the regular process of other oils. Geopolitically, it's a little bit of a quagmire, considering of most people would rather have tar sands version of oil once refined than oil from Iran or Russia or even Venezuela at some point. You got to remember what Biden did. He went out and kissed Maduro's ass and begged him for oil, then went into Saudi Arabia and Iran and did the same thing, and they all told him to go pound sand. So it comes down to this. It's more expensive. It's according to the ecologists and the environmentalists and all these other fucking assholes, they believe that it's harder, it's more environmentally stressful. But I think
go ahead. The thing I need to emphasize is all the companies that are pulling stuff out of the Athabasca tar sands are all American companies.
Right.
They came up here, they started it, we gave them the permits and whatever. They're not Canadian companies. They're American companies.
Right.
So for the Americans now to say, oh, we don't want the dirty Canadian oil. Right. It's your
That's
American companies that are pulling it out of the fucking ground.
Okay. I get it.
That's my point.
And it's not going to be an overnight thing. They need to reestablish these wells and these refineries that were all built in the, I don't know, early 1920s and 20s. The original drill systems that they had were 1920, 1930. The refineries have been updated, but the original striking was the U.S. doing this. So this has been going on. I mean, you're talking some of this stuff is almost 100 years old, if not more, when it comes to the base. I mean, they need to bring the technology and ramp it up just a little bit.
Leeroy, and my other point is,
go ahead.
The Canadians have shot themselves in the head, like I don't know how many times, because the only oil refinery we have left in Canada is in fucking Halifax. We don't in Alberta. When this boom started 1,000 years ago, whatever, they never even thought to build a goddamn refinery on the western side of this country to process our own stuff, to send it down a pipeline that would make it totally acceptable to everybody, whatever. So we've shot ourselves in the goddamn head here over all of our resources, whatever.
So much blasphemy coming from Canada.
Oh, I know.
That's the environmentalists, Mel, who are doing this to you, because honestly, I'm looking at the map and you guys are sitting on 572 trillion cubic feet of natural gas and another 8.8 billion barrels of oil. So it's your environmentalists who are killing that industry.
Maybe you guys could start paying for your own military with that money.
And our liberal government, because we've been trying to get our LNG pipelines to the West Coast from all these places where all this natural gas is. And we, like you, Leeroy, you just said, we have a shit ton of it. And
all right,
the provinces are fighting among themselves. The liberal government is stopping all of this. The environmentalists are like running rampant. The
All right.
indigenous are like whatever.
I gotta go.
We're screwed.
But
anyway,
I don't want to leave. No,
I
don't
love
leave.
you.
Don't leave. I gotta move topics. We got too many topics. Here, I just want to make sure I wrap this up. Stay.
Love you.
No, stay. God, shut up. Everyone just sit. All right. Early 1900s, 1910 to 1920, U.S. oil companies began drilling in Venezuela after concessions were granted by the Venezuelan government. 30s and the 70s is what we were talking about. It's where we saw the major global supplier upgrades, production, legally contracts expanded. Venezuela in 76 nationalized its oil industry, very much like what we saw in Iran, creating the PDVSA. The U.S. companies were pushed out or forced into minority roles. 1999 to 2013, Hugo Chavez, who I said Hugo Chavez was going to take power. I'm tired, folks. I said that the other show at the end. I said Hugo, and I think people are like, what the hell's Matt talking about? Chavez expelled U.S. oil interests. 2013, Maduro went in, and this is where we are today. Mel, we love you. Thanks for calling. I got to move on. Talk to you soon.
Love you.
Love you too. Bye. All right. So definitely a large topic. We understand that we've went over Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 before. It would make sense that some of this would be produced in China, and that maybe not it would be considered a massive blow. But if it's 4% of the oil that China takes in is converted by their refineries for tar sands, which they get at a cheaper cost because of the difficulty of processing this stuff, this is a massive impact. They lose overall affordability and they lose productivity. And those are two they can't replace the oil that they're losing with a cheaper product, and nobody's going to sell it to them. Do you understand why this is a big move for Trump? It's something we need to consider. We've got literally 15 seconds on this topic. Leeroy, close us out. We're moving on.
Yep. So my ending comment to this is that this was never about oil. If you look at it from the standpoint of, could the argument be made, would we be doing this if they had no oil? Let's assume for a second that Venezuela had zero oil. Would we still be doing this? Probably, because of the drug trade, because he's an illegitimate president, because he's a narco trafficker, and for all the other similar reasons. So, yeah. This was not about oil.
Julie Drake, I see your question. If we have some time to get to it, I will see what I can do, but I do need to move on. We've got a whole bunch more. And honestly, we need to also consider goal, because we are almost at 8 o'clock hour and we've raised $30. This has been happening with Leeroy and I because we're so damn entertaining. But folks, we've got to figure out how to go ahead and do this. Let's go ahead and play the next one. Donald Trump today addressed the GOP, and he had a story about what a transgender person looked like as a power lifter versus a male counterpart. This is pretty funny. I figured we would watch this. I don't know if there'll be a lot of commentary. We just kind of want you to watch this, and then we're going to move on to Lego. Let's go ahead and watch this.
And you see, I want to be more, but I have somebody watching. I want to be more effusive. I want to really, But she gets it, drops the thing, walks off the stage crying. Her mother's crying, her father's crying. Guy gets up. He said, "Have you lifted before?" A little bit. And he walks up. Bing. He could have gone ding, 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 ding. I think it was 112 pounds, right? It's crazy.
Something to consider. We're going to move on into Lego. He's funny. I love his stuff. I watched the whole damn thing. It literally, he just went up there and he just kept talking and talking and talking and talking. And he was in rare form, man. He was, he was crushing. We can't talk about it. We got to move on. We don't have time. Unless you got something really good, we got to move on.
One sentence.
Okay.
It was one sentence. It was,
all right.
A lot of people make the argument about Trump being non-presidential, but this is a guy who did television, on NBC doing comedy for how many years? So I expect to see this kind of thing. I love it.
Yeah. Well, I just hope he continues to do this. It was a very, very funny bit that he did. Here is Lego. Here's the question. Lego my ego. By the way, it's not Legos, folks. It's Lego. It's, even if there's more than one, it's still Lego. So it falls under with moose and geese and Mies and mice and all that other stuff. So it's Lego. There's no plural for it's not Legos. In fact, you never call them Legos. And if you do, and the company, I think they're, what are they? Switzerland? They're somewhere. They're overseas. Norway, Finland. It doesn't matter. But if you call them Legos, you get, summarily rebuked and the elitists thumb their nose at you. But the question is, I remember the days of, Bubba, Leeroy, $5. Thank you, Bubba. So I remember the days of Tinker Toys. I remember the days of, building blocks and there were no lights. There were no buzzing sounds. And you had your toys that you absolutely loved. And then you had the toys that were accessories to your other toys. What I mean is like you have your G.I. Joe and your He-Man, but you would use blocks to like build the castle if you didn't have Castle Grayskull or you didn't have Cobra Commander's Palace. You would use, blocks and plastic bins full of army men as your base. But either way, there was a point of imagination that took place. The question is, are they taking the imagination out of it? Are we moving too quickly in the technology and not allowing kids to use their imagination? Watch this. You tell me what you think.
Rick, to start looking for a smart minifigure. And you'll see from the sound and the color when it detects it. But it's not just looking for the minifigure, it knows who that minifigure is, and actually it knows where that minifigure is. So as I move the minifigure around, you'll see different lights and colors depending on where the minifigure is compared to the brick.
What does this allow us to do? Well, you saw it's actually a very simple system, a very simple addition, a platform that we're adding into the Lego system at play. It's the brick, it's the tags, and it's the interactive minifigs. But all together, what that unlocks is an opportunity for interactivity, new dimensions of responsiveness, opportunity for more social play and for more storytelling.
So let's see what happens when they come to life. So you hear the door unlock. The Lego Smart Play brings a whole new dimension to physical play. Lego bricks that play back. It's designed to inspire kids' imagination and get them playing creatively time and time again. We've put cutting-edge technology, some of it never seen before, into Lego Smart Play to create a platform for physical interactive play, allowing any Lego set to come alive in kids' hands.
Films give fans characters and stories that capture their imaginations, but toys gave them the opportunity to take these stories home and continue them.
Imagine what we could do with this brick.
So, yeah, I want your take. I grew up playing with Lego. Legos. I don't care what Denmark says. Legos.
Right.
I'm just telling you the truth. Even if you go to Legoland, they get pissy with you now. They're Lego. It's Lego. It's not Legos. Okay, you know what? Why don't you suck on this ego? But I grew up with that stuff. I love that type of stuff. Joseph Hillstrom, $10. Thank you, Joseph. Thanks for helping us move the needle. But I think, like, my son is building a Denver Broncos Mile High Stadium out of Lego, but they're kind of higher end Lego. They're smaller. They're more architectural based. And he's building this stadium, and it's a lot of work. I mean, he's had to break it down several times and start over because he's made one mistake. To me, here's the problem, and then you can tell me your thoughts. The one problem I have on this, and I'll just be quick, is the cost. This isn't going to Legos are already astronomically expensive. I mean, unbelievably expensive. And now when you put electronics in them and apps in them and, LED, lights and batteries and transmitters and receivers, how much are they going to be now? Like, sure, a Lego Millennial Falcon, which makes noise and chewy, Yoda. All of that is great. But how much money is that going to cost? What are your thoughts?
I never, this is going to be my, Matt's going to be mad at me for this. I never played a lot with Lego as a kid.
You're gay. You're gay. I didn't know you were homosexual. I didn't know.
Now my kids did. And I will tell you that, I didn't know what you call it. I only know the sound that I make when I step on it in the middle of the night.
Yeah, exactly.
my kids played with it, and to your point, it is very expensive. I'd say that it's gotten expensive enough that I've seen more adults messing around with this than I've seen kids these days.
Yeah.
We have a couple of friends who collect these things that are literal collections of these boxes that are untouched, and they go for some obscene amount of money. And it's crazy to me for literally just boxes of plastic.
Well, that's it. I mean, those templates that they've made, sure, they have to manufacture new angles and whatever, but like,
yeah,
Lego hasn't really changed a lot in its design. There's advancements, don't get me wrong, and they do incredible stuff now, and there's pieces that didn't exist in the 60s and 70s, but overall, once you strike that template and you insert that plastic and that into those molds, it's not ludicrously expensive to manufacture. The margin in Legos, I guarantee you, is 70 points. It's 70%. Like an Apple iPhone, I mean, this right here, this phone that's $1,500, it costs Apple $250 to make. I mean, the margin in it is absolutely stupid. It's stupid. Same thing with Legos. I mean, it's like audio equipment. Audio equipment is stupid. It's the same as it's a magnet, it's a driver, it's wiring, and then it's whatever the material it's made out of. That's it. The tweeter, the woofer. It's cheaper than shit to make audio equipment. I have B&Ws, I know, and trust me, those are very expensive. And I've got Martin Logan's downstairs. They're very expensive. But the technology itself it really is kind of the same. It's the components and the composite material that is going to cost you the most. But Lego is Lego, and it's been Lego since I was a kid. The pieces are not that different. Somebody's over on Rumble, Melanie, said, that's why I can't. Oh, no, she didn't say that. Sorry about that. It is Deborah Boggs says, Legos are so expensive, though. My feelings are the same as well. So the question is this good for kids? Does this help curtail their imagination into cool technology? Or are they ultimately going to get on their phone so they can go ahead and activate these things and then literally put the Legos down and then start playing with their phone?
You know, that's a great point. And I see that as probably the biggest advantage to toys that require some sort of tactile, hand-eye coordination to manipulate, right? Because too many times we find our kids with these things and they're just off doing their thing. At least if they're putting something together, they can visualize it differently. They might get different ideas on how to build something. And so within that realm, I think that Lego is amazing. I never played with it myself.
Hold on a second. What are you doing out there? You're driving me crazy with the camera going off. Okay, bring the box in for Mom. Thanks. All right. Sorry, she's on my patio setting off my alarm. Here's what it comes down to. Great. I'm sure it's neat. I'm sure it's like kids can't afford Legos to begin with. Parents certainly can't afford it. This is just going to make it more expensive. Hopefully what they do is they make versions with it and make versions without it, or they make it an add-on, right? Like you can program, like that one speaker has like 7, that would be a marketing feature that would be cool, is that it's the technology, like you buy the light, but the light can do multiple colors. So it will translate into your older Lego sets and replace their headlights with car lights. And then you can put them on the Millennium Falcon, or you can put them on a stadium, and ultimately the pieces are a la carte. That would be a good thing. It's not going to happen. What they're going to do is they're going to make a brand new Millennium Falcon, and they're going to add an extra $275 onto it because it lights up and it makes noises. That's what they're going to do.
Yep.
And they suck for it, bastards. Okay, next, America. I've got my Avs game on the other TV, by the way. The Avs are down 1-0. So here's the question. Is America slowly eroding to a point of no return? Now, you know me, I don't try to be black-pilled very often, but I've been black-pilled over the last few weeks, and I'm getting out of it. Dan Bongino's coming back, so I think I'm going to be in a better mood. But I want you to watch this video. These are J6ers against a person who's not a J6er. in the sense that these people believe and they're celebrating that the J6ers were pardoned, and a person who believes that the J6ers should have been summarily executed or castrated brings a megaphone in and wants to go ahead and do a counter protest. And this is the stupidity and the reaction of both parties. And I'm at a point where I'm like, I repudiate both of them. Like I want to castigate both of these groups of people out of society, the far right and the far left. You tell me what you think. Trust me when I say this, Leeroy. This is not something you're going to stomach very well. This is very disturbing. I mean, just the sheer immaturity of the video is going to make you go, "What? Have we transcended into idiocracy? Are we now a dumber country and we deserve whatever fate that we get? And whenever God comes down, it won't be soon enough." Here it is. Wow.
We rebuke you in the name of Christ, you fucking demon! Jesus is king! Jesus is king! Jesus is king! Jesus is king! Jesus is king!
No, I will not stop it. No, I'm going to continue to play it. You have to sit through this too if I have to sit through this. So you understand why I am where I am at right now.
Get out! Get out! Get nasty cunt!
So I don't know how to go ahead and make it any clearer about what's happening. You want me to rationalize that, folks? I'm not going to be able to, but I can tell you, like I said, I've already repeated myself multiple times. There were people there who were celebrating the J6 pardons and the people who were set free, and they were celebrating that. And obviously to gird up other people's loins to counter protests. And that one lady came in with a siren, and she believes that everyone who is involved in J6 should be executed and still in jail, and they were treasonous people. And there is a conflict. And there was a guy there in a white suit preaching Jesus and Christ is King, and then calling the lady a fucking and Jesus repudiates you. And like, I'm at a loss. Now, you're like, well, Matt, this isn't a reflection of society. Yes, it is. And you can go on Facebook and you can go on X and you can see how people are treating each other in the workplace. And this shit is getting to a point where I'm confused. Leeroy, your thoughts on this?
I've made this statement before, and I think a lot of it has to do with these things, right? I think that when emotional people find their label, whatever that label is, they get locked into an echo chamber that is just fueled by something called the availability heuristic, which is these things. Literally, there is so much content out there that we just can't shut it off, and it makes people crazy. And crazy people, when they feel like they want to protest almost, I mean, not always, but protest have a habit, right, of becoming violent. So I think that we as a society would do a world of good for ourselves if we could just turn off some of that screen time. To Matt's point, being black pilled, I get it. I get it. Every day on the news, we see more and more of this kind of thing. And it seems like the more rational type people, you know, the type that are just like, hey, let's just, they would never be there to begin with. They would never show up to a rally or a riot, right? There's not enough of those people that are in the limelight right now. Like, does that make sense? I don't know.
No, but this is being played out in the national stage too.
Yeah.
These are the people. Dan Bongino is coming out of. He sounds like a WWE wrestler. He's coming out and he's going to take everyone down and who are black pilled. Good. You know, I would love to see that, but he's like coming in with fire and brimstone. And the question I have is, why?
Yeah.
Why are you out there to begin with celebrating J6ers? And what the fuck is wrong with you people? Right. On the right, and what's wrong with you people who are still living this 6 years later and nobody cares? Nobody cared about the congressional hearings. Nobody cared what it happened. Nobody cared. Nobody cared. We got through the summer of love. We got through a year worth $2.5 billion in riots with Black Lives Matter. You're going to tell me that what happened on January 6th could even equate to that or a scintilla of that? Nobody cared. I didn't care. I covered it for 3 days and then I didn't talk about it again until people started bringing it up and like, oh, this was freedom and this was, you know, Ashley Babbitt was a hero and what? Like, what are you talking about? No, everyone should be ashamed, from the Democrats to the Republicans to anyone who condoned that and was involved with it. The only people who should not be ashamed were the 57,000 people who left that day peacefully, who were there for a rally. Those are the people who did it right. The Capitol Police, I mean, they made mistakes. The Trump administration made mistakes. The Biden administration made mistakes when they took over and they started going and prosecuting people. There were mistakes everywhere. The only people who were really truly innocent that day were the 57,000 people who left and didn't do anything.
Well, now wait a second, though. I mean, if that's the counterpoint, right, then the other innocent people would be the rest of America who did not show up, who has never gone to one of these types of violent rallies. And when you compare that 340 million people with the couple of thousand people that showed up in DC to protest that day, maybe there is still hope. Maybe there is just, it's the availability heuristic at work and the camera is focused on the violence because nothing else sells.
But see, this isn't the first time you've made that comment, that this is a small microcosm of the United States. This isn't a small microcosm. These are the people with the voices. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry where the people who are propagating this are the media, are the politicians, are the people with the microphones like you and I. The legacy media is dead. Nick Shirley proved that. He got Tim Walz to get out of the race. There is no more legacy media. Somebody like me, somebody like you could literally do an investigation and destroy people now. I mean, that's scary. That's a lot of power. And my thoughts are, yes, it's a microcosm. Yes, it doesn't reflect the 340, but that didn't stop a president of the United States to castigate aspersions on 71 million people and call us domestic terrorists because of it. You notice that 71 million of us who voted for Trump weren't there, but we were labeled by the U.S. government as terrorists, as domestic terrorists. We had the FBI. We had censorship on us because we couldn't say anything during COVID or couldn't say the words J6 without getting canceled. So, Leeroy, you're right. There's a whole bunch of people in here who don't care, but they're still impacted by it because the people who are making the decisions for those 340 million people do care. Yeah. That's my issue. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it. And it's a rough call. I think there's so much screen time for violence these days, and nobody's willing to just sit down and like have the discussion. All right, rather than immediately run to MAGA, rather than immediately run to Republican, liberal, Democrat, conservative, whatever labels we want to throw at people these days, which just seems to spark. It's like everything's a tinderbox these days.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we just can't sit down and talk about, all right, what's your stance on this policy? What are your why is this policy good? Why is this policy for America bad? We have somehow gotten away from that.
You know what? You want to know why? Is because that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about the problem. We're not talking, okay, postmodernistic society. In this day and age, the problem isn't, let's just face it, men and women's sports. That's not the problem. The problem isn't fentanyl. Hate to say these things. The problem isn't Maduro. The problem isn't China and Taiwan. The problem isn't Mexicans who came across the border. The problem, the true problem, is that we are $38 trillion in debt and reaching a fiscal ceiling where the United States will default on everything it owes, and the country will be completely unsafe if we don't find a way to get this to stop. The truth is that we are now in a Cold War with multiple countries, particularly China, but other countries, when it comes to Germany, when it comes to France, who are now supplying weapons to people with no ethics involved, who are counterproductive to the U.S. Being a safe and secure nation abroad and here on our soil. We're not talking about another pandemic that could take place that could literally wipe us all out because we don't have the infrastructure in place and didn't learn anything from COVID, which was not even remotely close to what we should be most concerned with. But if there is a super virus that comes out there, Mel Lowe donated $154.97. Thank you, Mel. Love you very much. Love you,
Mel.
Thank you, Mel. Love you. But there are many things that we need to be concerned about that are the underlying and the overlying issues, and we're not talking about them. We're not talking about abortion, 67 million kids killed, and we're not talking about low birth rates. We're not talking about that people aren't getting married anymore and having sex anymore. We're not talking about how the tax-paying class is getting smaller and smaller, which is how this country stays on its feet and how it could pay off of our debt. I mean, Leeroy, these are the issues. We're not talking about them.
Couple weeks ago, now take that back, it was a couple months ago, you and I had a discussion where you had sat down with your pastor, and he had talked about how people had substituted politics for religion. And looking back on that conversation, because I think it's pertinent here, that's probably pretty spot on. It seems like rather than have the correct priorities in anyone's life, which should be God, religion, whatever your faith is, then your family. I think these things have turned CNN and MSNBC into an absolute juggernaut that has substituted politics for religion. And because people are just so willing to accept a label, that it has turned everyone adversarial. Roughly half the country does not, they can't see inviting the other half over to their house for Thanksgiving. And I think it's crazy.
You crossed that line. You came over. You just said it, what I said a few months ago, and what my pastor said, politics is now a religion. It's amazing. I'm so proud of you that you see that, man, because it really has turned into that. It's a theology. People have went in their proverbial quarters, and whatever Republicans say is gospel, and whatever Democrats say is gospel, depending upon who is listening to the word. And it's terrifying. I don't mean to be condescending. If I sound condescending, you know me. When I'm being happy and jovial is the same as when I'm pissed. I just sound the same. My emotional range is kind of limited, but I'm very. It moves me that you're saying that, because I really do believe the same thing. The Smith-Mundt Act, which was just brought up by The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, absolutely aware of it. I mean, that stayed for how long? 1948? And 2012, Obama comes in and essentially allows the U.S. media and the government to propagandize information and not be held accountable, that they can disseminate that information to the people of the United States of America. It's one of the reasons why the media gets away with what they get away with now. They have sensationalized the information. They're not held accountable. And all you have to do is say this is an editorialization, and you're free and clear of any wrongdoing or accountability for what you say and do. it has a lot to do with it. There's a reason why that stayed in place. Anyway, Fort Bragg.
Never been there.
Where? I don't know it. President Trump in last summer with Pete Hegseth went to Fort Bragg, and it's no longer called what? Fort Freedom or Fort Hope or whatever the bullshit they called it. Bragg is Special Forces, Green Berets. It's where you'll see some other groups also spend some time. There was but I just, So there's some other groups that might have been involved in Venezuela. In fact, most assuredly were, and at Bragg. So, by the way, we called it Delta the night of. We got a video. We got a video of the few of the choppers that came in, and I'm like, Delta.
Yep.
So I knew. I was like, I know what air wing it is. I'm not going to say anything. It's Delta. And so we got our calls right. And you remember, I don't know if you know this, but the show 3 weeks ago, we called that, and you were on the show, that Maduro and his wife, they were going to snatch Maduro and his wife, and that's what we would see. We wouldn't see a full ground assault, or we wouldn't see. I don't know if you remember that, but the viewers did, and they're like, "Holy shit, we got it right again." So, anyway, moving on. So this is a video, and it's going around X, and I want to make sure I put this to bed. This is standard training for Fort Bragg, and these are Rangers who are doing this, by the way. And so it's very important for you guys to understand is that even the President of the United States isn't going to have cameras when Delta is operating, or when certain other units that are JSOC or MARSOC designated are going to, or Special Forces USS SOCOM are going to be photographed and filmed. That is going to be distributed to the public, number one. Number two, everyone's like, this is exactly what happened in Venezuela. Actually, it's nothing like what happened in Venezuela. Venezuela, you're missing about 90% of the cake. But here's the video. We can watch it. We can get Leeroy's perspective. He'll probably tell you the exact same thing I did. Here it is. Dude, I love how that Black Hawk insert. I mean, it's so cool. You can explain some of those movements of why it's coming in low, why it does a terminal pop up, and then why it comes back down when it's inserting upon target. But
oh, look at that!
That's a 30mm if I ever heard one.
Jamie, you like big boom?
Yep. It's a lot of people are thinking that's the 30mm on a Warthog. It's not. It's probably going to be mounted to a mechanical, so like a Hummer, more than likely a 30mm handheld. You can hear by the pitch. If it was flying over, you would also hear a very distinct sound of an A-10. So it's not an A-10, and also the Doppler effect's not taking place. So when an A-10 comes over and it fires its 30, you'll hear the Doppler effect take place. So that's a fixed or a movable mechanical, more than likely. Let's see.
Oh,
you know Trump has a hard on right now, you know?
A lot of people don't realize those Chinooks are faster than the Apaches you're flying with.
Yeah, those Chinooks, man, they're amazing. There's a reason why they've been around for a long time. Oh, there it is. So that's a 50. And that just flew by was the 30. Watch when they drop these guys. Watch how nothing dips. That if this was a Black Hawk and they were doing fast rope or any other type of chopper, you would see that chopper doing this with the weight distribution. Just watch this Chinook. It doesn't even move. That's some power, boys and girls. So just, I'll wait for Leeroy. Someone's
you
like,
got
could this be the mock-up of the Venezuela compound? No. Just hold on. All right. So people are asking questions. Is that the Maduro raid? Is that no, it's not. That's pretty standard. Those are Rangers. Those aren't Delta. You can tell by the way they come off the chopper and the way they move together. There is it's hard to explain. Leeroy's going to help cut into it a little bit, and then I'll add too. Go ahead.
As best I can tell, and I'm not privy to this, I've never seen this video before, but as best I can tell, this is the Department of War, the Secretary of the Department of War and Trump basically going out to Bragg and just seeing what they can do. This wasn't necessarily anything based on a specific exercise with a specific outcome or objective. This was just them showing off. This is what our guys can do, how quickly they can deploy 8 to 12 guys on the top of a roof and penetrate into an airspace. That, as best I can tell, that's what this was.
So you see, Glenn. So the other things that I would say is, if you took a look, they also put ceiling charges. You could see them laying charges on top of the roof. You could see them going in sporadically. Their movements, the stacking isn't there. The overall unit cohesion and movement wasn't there. So you can tell the difference in operators. And like when you see Delta, and you don't get to see Delta move because Delta is pretty much the tip of the spear and are the most quiet professionals you usually encounter. But if you see any type of team training, and you don't see a lot of team training either, but a lot more easily accessible and a lot more eyes have been on that and general public than you would see Delta operators moving or British SAS or anything like that. But you can see Force Recon guys, you can see SEALs operate, you can see Ranger battalions and what they can do and how those squads move. Delta is a very different animal. And the way that they execute, the way that they sync, the way that they stack, the way that they infiltrate, even on that fast rope, it's too long. It's way too long. No, it's just too long. When you'll see operators, they'll do dust-offs and they don't even use ropes. I mean, they'll come in and those Blackhawks will literally be nap of the earth, and then they'll pop up. They'll sit right above that heel and they'll jump on ceiling. Yeah. They'll be 2 feet off the wash. So it's just a different type of process. And you could see that one of those Black Hawk operators was Special Forces Command and was Rotary Aircraft Force Spec Ops because the way he was flying. And you'll notice that by exactly what I just said, when he came in low and then popped up vertical, lowered his profile for RPG and mad pads, and then did a dive over their targets. So you just saw different things. So the point I'm trying to make, cool, awesome. You are not going to get training like that to be recorded in that way. And then the second to last thing is there were no Humvees on the ground. So you're not going to do training with things that aren't going to be there and readily accessible. And you're not going to see multi-unit strategies like that happening. You're going to see them train separately, not together with special forces, because their mission is completely different. And a helo coming in and doing a wash over a building and dumping and pulling out is not necessary to have Humvees going ahead and laying fire into a building. So it's a cool maneuver. You're pulling out all the bells and whistles. You get the white hat on, you get the white gloves on, and you look all pretty for the President of the United States. That's what took place there, and it's cool.
Exactly.
It wasn't Venezuela.
Likely what that was Pete Hegseth had said, hey, he phoned down to Fort Bragg and was like, hey, I'm going to be coming down there with the president. Can you guys give us a show and make it a good one? Right. And some 1 star, 2 star was like, hell yeah, we can do that. Right. So he gets his guys in gear. They say, let's arrange for all the helicopters. We'll throw some troops on the top of a rooftop and drive around in some Humvees and make some explosions and make it look like all completely Hollywood. Completely Hollywood.
Yeah. Fun. And Bubba said it best. Operators are ready to handle their pieces by themselves. They are. And if a QRF is needed, or they need Marines, or they need a detachment of Army, they'll get that. Okay. But once again, operators can handle their own loads. Anyway, it's a fun video to watch. I don't mean to shit on people. I'm not doing that. I'm not saying that maybe some of those parts and those trainings, but that's pretty standard. That's SOP. Those guys do that. They train that evolution. They train those evolutions every single day. And if this was a water insertion and they went in with an SDV, you might see a video of that, of Trump watching that in Norfolk. And you would be like, oh my God, that's what they did in Venezuela. Same thing. It's just a piece of training that resembles portions of it, but anybody who knows what truly happened that night know that that was not even remotely close to what took place. Okay? Right. Fair enough? All right, good. All right. Having fun. Moving. I hope you guys like the new format. I hope you like what you're seeing. I want to say thank you for the donations. We are pushing up against the last 30 minutes. I'm going to pop up the goal, and we've got about 7-8 more topics that we're gonna have to pick up the pace here, but we've got 30 minutes to full joy, so let's keep going. Next topic, the GOP rift. You've been hearing about this, that MAGA is weakening, that we're that we're losing our support. I think Leeroy will have a very good point on this here in a second. When it comes to the middle is the question that really is the issue, which will decide these midterms. It's not going to be the left. It's not going to be the right. It will be the undecideds and the people who do usually, in fact, every presidency but 4, have voted out the party in power when it comes to the House and the Senate. And this is just something that absolutely happens like clockwork. Here is the video, and we'll watch this, and then we'll get comments from Leeroy.
In Venezuela, let me be very clear. There is no rift in the Republican Party. Yes, there are some folks like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie who are quite skeptical of this. They are very much in the minority. What are we talking about here? Well, why don't we just talk the GOP on the U.S. military ousting Maduro? Ipsos, 65% support, 6% opposed. How about the Washington Post poll? 74% support, just 10% opposed. If you look among 2024 Trump supporters, we're talking about 80% support. The vast, vast majority of Republicans are with Donald Trump on this issue. Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene are very much in the minority. Very few Republicans are with him.
You say they're with him on this issue. Do you even need those words, this issue?
No, I don't need the words, this issue, because the bottom line is this. Donald Trump has had an iron grip on that Republican base for a long period of time, and it is the same iron grip that he had 6 months ago. I know every so often people are trying to say, oh, I spot these little rifts in the Republican base. Oh, you know, they're finally starting to break. They're starting to break from Donald Trump. It ain't happening, at least when it comes to the approval rating. Look at this, 84% 6 months ago, 85% now. You don't have to be a mathematical genius to know 85% and 84% are basically the same number. In fact, 85% is 1 point higher than 84%.
Show me.
I really like this guy, and I've liked him since they've been doing the election. He's classy. Thomas Massie says the judge should release autistic J6 pipe bomb suspect Brian Cole Jr. No credible motive, presents danger to no one, flimsy evidence, no priors, willing to wear a tracker under house arrest, family will vouch, and DOJ botched the legal work. Now, this is interesting. I'm going to bring this all together because, we're looking at the numbers. Marjorie Taylor Greene is out. She's done. Her last day was today. Thank God. I'm so sick of her ass. And I'm also sick of Thomas Massie. I can't wait till he's primaried in 2026. And he will be by most accounts. I think his poll numbers, he's like 61 points underwater. It's bad. He should get shellacked unless just something happens that can't be explained. But President Donald Trump had some things to say. We're going to go ahead and talk about that right now. The incredible people of Kentucky's 4th Congressional District who want desperately to get rid of Thomas Massie, the worst Republican congressman we have had had in many years, gave us a mandate, make America great again. The person that will help us do the job and do it right is Navy SEAL, Army Ranger, 5th generation Kentucky farmer, American hero, Captain Ed Galrein. Yes, and that is correct. Navy SEAL and Army Ranger. It does happen from time to time. A lot of Rangers go through Ranger training and then join the Navy and then go through BUDS. It happens all the time, and pretty much every BUDS class usually has some inter-service involved. Force Recon Marines, it might have some Coast Guard SAR swimmers. You see this all the time in the BUDS classes. I have heard that there are other candidates exploring a run for this seat, but I'm asking all MAGA warriors to rally behind Captain Ed Galrein, the candidate who is far and away best positioned to defeat. We're hoping Loretta goes ahead and gets Ed on the show. We would love to have the captain on here. He's a brave combat veteran. Ed knows the wisdom and courage required to defend our country, support military veterans, and ensure peace through strength. Captain Ed Galrein has my complete and total endorsement against Congressman Thomas Massie. He only votes against the Republican Party, making life very easy for the radical left. Unlike lightweight Congressman Massie, a true hater of Israel and a total ineffective loser who has failed so badly, Captain Ed Galrein is a winner who will not let Kentucky down. Leeroy, your thoughts on your great white hope, Thomas Massie, once libertarian, now rhino, labeled by Donald Trump. Your thoughts?
Isn't it funny how people could be swapped out? Just that their name tags can be ripped off and just another one can be slapped on, just depending on the heat of the moment. Absolutely. I didn't know that about, what was his name? Ed started with the G.
Galrein?
Yes, my God, that sounds like an amazing guy. I'd love to read more on him, and I will. You know, I think the CNN commentator there hit on something really specific. Everyone who tends to lean pretty far right these days, you know, they have their podcasters. They have Ed Shapiro, they have Steven Crowder, and the list goes on and on and on. Dan Bongino's to everyone, right? And there's so much infighting that you would, on the surface, you would look at that and say, oh my God, everyone is ganging up on Candace Owens. Nobody likes Tucker Carlson. What the hell is happening? Where is the quote unquote MAGA party? Well, that's just on the surface. If we step back 4 years in time, we have to remember that what the Democrats were trying to do, and this is still what they're suffering from, is they've turned every issue into a 1% issue. They only care about the things that, like, literally nobody else really cares too much about. Right. So they were talking about, you know, transgenders or open borders, things of that nature. They have painted themselves into this corner. Right. And now they have to figure out how they're going to get their way out of it in order to appeal to the more moderates, the independents that are still on the table. So when everyone is talking about the MAGA party, MAGA itself, the label, sure, there might be some cracks in there, maybe. I don't know where this whole party is going to end after Trump is gone, but what are the values that make up MAGA? I looked up an old survey, a poll that was taken in July of this year, and it said that MAGA tends to focus on the restoration of economic and global strength. Okay, that sounds pretty good. They focus on America First policy, and they want a return to moral values. That sounds like a lot of those are interchangeable with the Republican Party of old. The Republican Party of new can very easily take on those values. By contrast, when they were talking about the Democrat themes, which were one of victimhood, labeling of culturalism, racism, and sexism, right? The forced labeling. So they're not going to accept any responsibility themselves. They're going to point to everyone else. They're going to point to Matt and say, oh, he's a Nazi. They're going to point to this person over here, Tucker Carlson. He's a racist, xenophobic, whatever. Right? Yeah. The Nazi salutes.
Oh, sorry. I heard my cue. Sorry. Go ahead.
And then they're going to also focus on the rejection of nostalgia and the embrace of historical revisionism. So that's not me saying this. This was a poll that it was put out earlier. I can throw up the link if anybody wants it, but I saw it on Yahoo. I see that the media is kind of failing to impress that message on everyone. The 1% issues that the Democrats were suffering from are still there, right? They're still caring more about Maduro than anybody in their own local districts, right? And this infighting seems to be at surface level only. The people that will decide the next election are the independents that are right in the middle. They'll waffle one way or the other. So again, those common themes there are going to be what's your stance on tax, inflation, abortion, and gun control, right? You control those things so long as the Republicans make those items the hot button issues moving forward. I think we're in a really solid place. I think what we're seeing is the destruction, not the destruction completely, but I see a lot of the weakening of the left and a strengthening of the right.
The one good thing that we have going for us in this midterm is certainly not history. History is not going to help us. In fact, it hurts us, and it's absolutely demonstrable for our outcome. But the only thing that people hate in this country more than MAGA and Donald Trump are Democrats. And that is the thing that is really good news, is that they are so far underwater. Like gonorrhea and herpes of the tongue are like slightly less popular than Democrats. So this is going to be an interesting election. And I honestly don't know. I'll know when we get closer, and we predict it. And we've had tougher times than this. 2020 there were some tough races to call, and so were 2022, and 2024 was a tough race to call, and we crushed it. We'll let you know. Yeah. And right now this looks, it doesn't look good. But we also have tax time coming. We have the big, beautiful bill coming. We have a lot of things that are going to happen. We see prices going down. It looks like the projections on quarter one, quarter two is that it's going to be very, very good for the retail industry. We saw a great Black Friday. We saw a wonderful Christmas, and travel was good too. So people are spending money. They're not as afraid as they were. And the stock market is at an all-time high, even though we were told by now it would be Black Sunday for everybody. And folks, we're in a good spot. Let's go ahead and take this a step further. Donated from Tommy Cawthon. Here's a little to help. Come on, dummies. We can all do a little. We will get there. Thank you, Tommy. I appreciate it.
Tommy.
We're at $210 right now. We're $90 short. We've got about 17 minutes, 20 minutes to be exact. But we're going to keep up with this topic. And I hope you guys are enjoying the live show and the way we're doing it tonight. Seems like the viewers sure are, because we have a lot of people sticking around and watching and engaging on all the channels. Welcome back, YouTube. They banned us for 7 days, but we're back, and we'll make sure that we don't get another strike. We'll do our best. $20.03 from Anonymous. Thank you, Anonymous. Hi, Matt and Leeroy.
Anonymous.
Let's push for 300 plus, y'all. And I love you out there where you are, and I know who you are. Moving this on a little bit further, want to go into Megyn Kelly. JD Stillwell, $15. Thank you, JD. Hey, Leeroy, long time no see. Have a great night, guys.
Thank you, JD.
Megyn Kelly is not a conservative. I don't know what you folks are smoking. Megyn Kelly was always kind of like a Bill Maher. She rode the middle until she didn't. And when she decided not to run the middle, she would more than likely most of the time fall on the left. Now, she's going to throw a bone out to you guys, the proverbial bone. Candace does this too, where she'll make a comment and she'll say 98 things that are horrible about Donald Trump and then 2% which are nice. And you guys hold on to the nice and go, well, she's just being honest. Megyn is being fairly disingenuous with her positioning. She's always been a liberal with her beliefs. She supported transgender people and sexual transitioning. She's always been open with LGBTQ. She's never been an advocate for faith as much as you would be led to believe. And remember, she left Fox and had some horrible things to say about Donald Trump and liked to go ahead and espouse negativity towards him and wasn't very fair to him in his debate. Here is Megyn Kelly now, and I want you to listen to this because you know that I am eternally loyal to Megyn Kelly. I love this woman. In fact, it's probably the only woman I would leave my wife for, which is not true. But I think Megyn Kelly is hot and smart. But I'm also going to call her out when she's wrong because this is what we do. Here's the video. Listen to this. You tell me what you think.
I really think this is something we need to consider both sides on. I really do. I don't think, let me just tell you something. When I was at Fox News, which was a long time, 14 years, I would have known exactly what to do in the wake of Trump's attack in Venezuela, his retrieval, shall we say, to put it in mild terms, of Nicolas Maduro. I would have known that I was supposed to cheerlead it. And I turned on Fox News yesterday, and I'm sorry, but it was like watching Russian propaganda. There was nothing skeptical. It was all rah-rah, cheerleading. Yes, let's go. And that's fine. I love our military as much as anyone, and I believe in President Trump, but there are serious reasons.
So it's either fine or not fine. Which one is it? Because you're making a rant. I hate when people undercut their argument. And second, you just said that for 14 years, you were a puppet for Fox News and said everything that they wanted you to say. Good job.
Reasons to just exercise a note of caution before we just get on the rah-rah train. All right, I have done that enough times in my career as a Fox News anchor to have been embarrassed enough to know I'm going to stay on the yellow light for this. I'm not in the green light territory. I'm not in the red light territory either, but I am staying in the yellow light territory for now. I see all of the strategic advantages.
Right the middle. Right the middle.
Of what he's done. Trust me, I do. I see that other countries like Russia and China and Cuba were all over Venezuela and its oil, posing a potential threat to the United States. I get that. That's actually the most persuasive argument, and obviously the real at the leadership level.
No, the most persuasive argument is geography, which is the biggest vulnerability to the United States, especially with the fall of Cuba. And if you have some country, while Russia is predisposed to another one, like China, that decides to go ahead and park nuclear missiles, especially hypersonic missiles, off of Cuba, guess what? Washington can be lit up like a Christmas tree in less than a minute. So geographically, the United States is trying to change the innovation of weaponry that is happening all over the world and adding space and distance and putting buffer between us and threats. And Venezuela is a great place to start to decentralize northern South America, which has some of the most volatile governments and communist influence throughout the entire continent. Something to think about. Has nothing to do with oil. This really, yeah, it has something.
1,000%. 1,000% I agree with what you just said, but we need to add on to that this isn't about Venezuela nearly as much as this is a nail in the coffin for places like China and Iran,
right? Who
depend on that oil,
right? Yes, but see, it's not. But they're saying it's about our oil. No. This is to start taking back market share of oil that's been gobbled up by other countries that are absolutely antithetical to what Western civilization and North America want to do. We are putting the kibosh on their military expansionism. This hurts Russia's ability to go ahead and propagate war. This stops China for expansionism. This stops Iran for what they are trying to do, which is to backdoor Shahed drones to Russia and to China and their weaponry that they're selling in exchange for energy too. All of this is geopolitical, folks. This is a long game. It's not 4D chess. This is geopolitics at its finest, and it's something that Leeroy understands and I understand, and we're telling you that the people saying this is to save a nickel on a gallon of gas are living in literally the Persian Gulf era. They need to pull their heads out of their asses because it's a lot more complex than that, including shipping. Shipping has a lot to do with this as well. We'll talk about that in a second. Here's the rest of Megan.
And then saying either we're going to steer the country to a better place or it's going to steer itself. Either one. They just 9 times out of 10, they don't work out well. And what does it mean in terms of boots on the ground? Trump is saying, I'm actually fine with that in Venezuela. Well, whose boots? Because I have a 16-year-old boy. And I have a 12-year-old boy, and I have a 14-year-old girl. And a lot of my listeners have children, too, who are actually the ones who might have to fill the boots. So I think I speak for a lot of moms and dads, for that matter, when I say I'm staying in yellow territory until we know more. And I will not be joining the Fox News cheerleading brigade this time. I've been burned too many times.
Okay. So Leeroy's got some points. I had some points. I just want to say this. Taking out Maduro is a good thing.
Yeah.
This isn't Saddam Hussein. you're not leaving a palace guard that is one of the strongest military forces inside the region outside of Saudi Arabia and Iran. But during the time that we hit Iraq, Iraq was number one. Let's just even though that number one was pretty pathetic, they were number one. Iran was first. Second was Iraq. But the Iran-Iraq war really, truly set the standard. Joseph Hills from 2110, Leeroy, nice beard. This is a new Bic Razor. This is for a new Bic Razor. Great analysis. So I want you guys to understand is that Venezuela military is unless you're going to get into a jungle conflict in Venezuela, the United States has nothing to worry about. Could it be another Vietnam? No, because we don't have the geopolitical constraints. This war would be done through proxy. This war would be done through sanctions, through blockades, and strategic strikes. Paul Rivera, 51.99. Great show tonight, brothers. A lot of good info and intel. This is why I come here. Keep up the great work. You got it, Paul. Thank you, buddy. So,
thank you, Paul.
Relax. Now, what do you want to address about Megyn Kelly's fence sitting and how she outed herself multiple times? Kimberly Jergmeyer, $10. Thank you. Great show, guys. Thank you. We like it too. We've got a bunch of people watching. Real quick, we've got 42 over on Rumble, I think is what it says. 154 in General Pop, and YouTube is back. Leeroy, your thoughts on this?
I understand Megan's perspective. In a lot of ways, the major headliners that you see, so Megyn Kelly, Ben Shapiro, Tucker Carlson, some of them try to stay kind of in the middle. Some of them try to lean all the way into a particular profile, right? For Megyn to basically try to ride the middle tells me that if she leans too far in one direction or another, she's probably in fear that she's going to lose some viewership, which has been a problem for right-wing podcasters as of late, just because of all of the infighting. Now, that being said, the one thing that she neglected to bring up was the fact that Maduro was never legitimate. It's not a legitimate president, nor is his administration legitimate in any way. All that Trump has done, all the U.S. has done is remove a narco-terrorist, which is a good thing, right? And made American shores safer by way of eliminating tons of drugs that were inbound for the country, right?
That's it.
This is no different than Noriega. None.
No. Or El Jefe or El Chapo. The only reason why this is a problem is because Donald Trump did it.
Optics. Yep.
It's just because Trump did it. They don't. The Democrats were calling for this. I showed you a video of Joe Biden calling Donald Trump a coward. And I showed you Jean-Claude Jean-Pierre went ahead and said that Trump didn't do anything about Maduro. Well, Trump did something about Maduro. Okay. And honestly, if you want to say truth, the $12 million, $25 million to $50 million bounty, we saved some money. Actually, no. This whole exercise probably cost us 25-30 billion.
Think so? That much?
Yeah, maybe a little less. There were a lot of 35s up, dude. Probably a little less. This probably at least cost $2.5 billion. But I'm also considering the 3 months of planning this took. I'm also talking about the strikes. I'm talking about the SIGINT, the ELINT. You know, they had P3s buzzing and E2C Hawkeyes and KC-135s flying there 24 hours a day. We've put a lot into this over the last 6-7 months. I would say it's in the high 10 billion area for the entire operation, most assuredly. It was expensive.
I could buy that.
This wasn't cheap, but it will wind up helping us in the end. I truly believe.
I just had that flashback from the movie Taken of Liam Neeson goes, you know how much it costs for them to change the angle of the lens so they can see how where you scratch your worthless balls? You remember?
Yeah. Well, tasking satellites used to be not with drones. Now it's just call up Arizona and make the change. You know what I'm saying? Make a collect call to Arizona and tell them to change the lens. So does that make the Venezuela VP illegitimate too? Isn't that who is currently in charge? Yes, but you have to understand this. is if Maduro was in power and the vice president and he was the threat, what do you do with her? She doesn't have an active warrant. She doesn't have any type of international pressure. What do? You black bag her and throw her in Guantanamo? You have to allow her a chance for concessions because she is going to say, hey, I was being held under by Maduro regime and I want to do good for this country. So let's see what she does. If she doesn't play ball, we remove her. And Trump even said and gave her an ultimatum, do these things we said and then resign. He's already told her. He's like, you're going to resign. You're not going to be the VP. You're going to help us with this transition. You're going to do the things we tell you to do. Then you're going to resign, and your people are going to elect new leaders. That's what he said. This isn't regime change. The regime's going to stay in place. Regime change is usually you kill the entire cabinet, you kill the administration, you eliminate the generals, and you go ahead and replace them with people who are acquiesce to the United States request. This is a little different than that, okay? The regime's in place. The military commanders are in place. The treasurer, everything is in place. They're just saying the United States is going to oversee what comes into this country and what you can ship out until further notice. That's what he's saying. We control the money now. We get to decide where you spend your money. This is this is a blockade with some personality. This is a blockade that can't just stop people from coming. They get to fire on things, too, if they decide to get unruly. Okay? I'm telling you right now, you're going to see a carrier in that water for the next 10 years, Democrat or Republican. You're going to see a carrier right there. Like, they're going to have campaign medals.
God, there's been so much in the news between battleships. We didn't even scratch, like, the surface on
I hit all
10
that.
of the headlines. Oh my God.
I hit all of that over the break, and I let you have it off because I love you and I want you to be with your family. That had nothing to do with not wanting you here. I wanted you to enjoy your Christmas.
Well, I was thinking, thank you very much for that, by the way. I was thinking about this during the break, and I was like, when they first brought up the idea of the battleships, and on the surface, it sounds like it's a great idea.
It's not.
I think it depends on how they would label it. If you're going to call something a battleship, that's great. Just make sure that it has the tailored capabilities that are needed within a region.
Long guns.
If anything else right now, what I could see is maybe we don't start dismantling Nimitz class aircraft carriers. Maybe we just retrofit them and put a bunch of Connex boxes that are loaded to the gill with missiles.
Yeah.
Right. Use those as supposed quote unquote battleships and float those in the Caribbean.
And the LHDs and the LCD models did not go over very well and were not the best for. So to redo those drawings are bullshit. That's not what they're going to look like. The LCD and LHD has pretty much been washed. So if this is going to be a battleship, it has to have over the horizon targeting from a mid to short term range. And let's face it, these are honestly aircraft carrier sponges. That's what they would be used for. And also short and long range intermediary style Tomahawk launches and everything else. The reason why is because Arleigh Burkes are good for what they do, but they are susceptible to hypersonic missiles. And the profiles in the defense systems that these ships are going to need, they don't want to necessarily put more aircraft carriers out there because we already have enough of them. But these battleships would be essentially tougher, stronger, more bulky. They can take hits on the waterline a hell of a lot more effectively. And they're bulkier, bigger type of vessels. This would deter aircraft carriers getting hit, which operationally are much more important than a battleship would be. I would imagine that these things would probably be 5-6 miles off the fleet and ready to absorb and engage any type of system. But they could also employ other type of naval systems that the Arleigh Burke can't, like he was alluding to, from long range with long range and short range and medium range missiles, but more importantly, weapon systems like a railgun, like CWIS, like other type of systems that we can't talk about, Aegis systems and everything else. So you're going to probably see a very beefy, strong, tank-like mentality when it comes to this battleship, if they do it at all.
I don't, and that's the other question. I don't think that they can. At least not before, say, 2035, right? The whole idea behind
tell them why. Tell them why.
Okay, when you're conceiving a completely new platform, there's several things to take into account. the reason that we can't just add on whatever the new weapon systems are onto an Arleigh Burke is because the Arleigh Burke is already weighted down. It is maxed out in terms of tonnage for weapon systems. So if you're talking about bringing back something like a battleship, you're talking a from scratch build, which means that you're not building one, you have to build three. That's the way the Navy works. You never have just one of something because there's one ship that's deployed, another one that is going through its operational testing, and another one that is being retrofitted or dry docked, right? So you always have three of something. So when Trump said, "Oh, we're going to build two of these," no, you're not. You're going to do it right, if hopefully, and build at least three, if not groups of three. So 3, 6, 9
for money too.
For money too. Now, when we start talking about, Matt's absolutely right. If the carrier is the center, right, and you think of the Navy in terms of range rings, right, the ship that has the greatest effect is going to be the carrier. So what do you put out on the outer edges? That's always been your frigates. These are the smallest vessels that we have, right? Well, now there's no more Constellation class 2. They killed that program. Right, you go in one range ring. Try saying that 10 times fast. That's when you start looking at the destroyers, the Arleigh Burkes. Right, we go one ring in further. That's your Ticonderoga class cruisers. Right, then you end up with the carriers, and underneath you always have a submarine, and then the carrier can take care of everything, the bubble over it. So, for them to start conceiving this idea of a new battleship, that's going to take time. That's going to take, if they got it done before 2035, I'd be impressed. So this isn't going to be anything that would be completed in Trump's administration. Far from it. It's going to be
and the thing about it is
decade down the road.
The battleship would have to be on the outer ring, though. You wouldn't put that in front of cruisers. You wouldn't put that in Ticonderoga class. You wouldn't put that in Arleigh Burke class. You would put that on the outer ring. And it would have to be fast, and it would have to be maneuverable. Two things that battleships are not. So you would have to have a 3/4 the size of an aircraft carrier to 60% the size of the aircraft carrier. It would have to displace probably half of what an aircraft, well, less than that, probably 30% of what an aircraft carrier displaces. Right. And you got to have it fast, and you got to have it maneuverable, because this thing needs 360-degree line of sight, and you would probably have them 2 per battle group.
I thought I heard them say it was going to be something like a planned 50,000 ton vessel, which is medium.
Yeah, that's not
medium.
Then why are you doing it? That's not big enough.
Right.
I mean,
it might have said 80. I'm not sure.
Okay, but even then, I mean, what's max displacement for an aircraft carrier?
It's 100,000
easily
tons.
Yeah, and then fully loaded equipment, you can add another 50 onto that thing. At least. So with ammunition, with planes, with people, with fuel, with everything else, food. So my point is that even in 80, that's a little closer to what we're looking for. But my point is this battleship, if anyone thinks that this battleship is going to do over the horizon targeting, Tomahawk missile launches, it's going to get close to within 50 miles of some country's border, I would challenge that. I would challenge that. The only thing that you really would use this thing for is a bullet sponge that has short to medium range interdiction, but also has long range capability with its missile selection. And you could use this with F-35 over the horizon technology and use these battleships, but also I believe what the Navy is believing is going to happen is eventually you're going to see foreign countries target our aircraft carriers with hypersonic missiles.
That's correct.
And because of that, these aircraft carriers, you can sink 3 aircraft carriers and you still have another 9 that can be up your ass. The point is that the cost of those are incredible. So you've got to build a ship which is affordable, which can take a hit, because you just don't want to just say, okay, here's our battleship and sink it. But it's got to take a hit, but it's also got to be able to retaliate from afar, because it doesn't have the speed. It doesn't have the maneuverability of smaller vessels. So you've got to kill it before it can kill you. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is have advanced weaponry and systems that have that HK capability. And that's not what a battleship really has done. Battleships were designed to lay massive amounts of ordnance from afar, where AAA was too dense or troops were too dense for conventional style insertions. So these battleships would come off the fucking the country of origin and literally just lay waste with these giant shells and just hit, which wasn't really effective, to be honest with you. Didn't do shit in Iwo Jima. They tried to soften up Iwo Jima for like 30 days. So, and didn't do too much for Normandy as well. So the point is that battleships became obsolete. They were too big. They were too large. And honestly, carriers rendered them obsolete.
Absolutely. It's one of the things that they teach in the Navy War College now is that, like, you know, prior to the Coral Sea, most of the battles that were done throughout the Navy were ships that could see each other. You know, the Coral Sea was the first engagement where the ships never saw each other. It was all fought with aircraft. And then we found out that aircraft can sink things like the Bismarck, which at the time was the biggest battleship ever created. You know, the Yamato. So the battleship had its day. And that's why I said it wouldn't work in the conventional sense that most people are probably thinking of. We're going to put giant guns on this platform and call it a battleship, and we're awesome again.
It's
not going to work
it's
that
not
way.
that. No,
it would have to be a complete re-envisioning of what it is capable of and what its intended purpose is. Like, what do you want this thing to do? Because that's how you would have to design it. There's a lot more work that has to go into this before we can.
Let me ask you a question. I just had an idea. Did you see the designs on the back of the vessel, that it had a VTOL or a rotary aircraft takeoff position on the back of it?
I don't recall that, but
it did.
I mean,
it did. In the designs, what if they stick an F-35 or an F-22 on that back of that thing? Modification for VTOL takeoff. So that would be the 22, right?
What for?
For 35.
VTOL?
F-35.
F-35.
Yeah, if you want to do vertical takeoff. What if you could have one of these out there that could literally put an F-35 in the air without having to wait for one to spin up in Ramstein or somewhere else, or Diego Garcia, or wherever else an F-35 would be? Or what if you would put an F-35 on there that could do over-the-horizon targeting for 500 miles? Now you don't have a battleship. You essentially have an Arleigh Burke destroyer, which has weapon systems that are incredible, but could deploy and keep those battleships to the blind spots of an aircraft carrier, which are its sides.
So it's funny you say that.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Isn't that forward projection like amazing?
So it's funny you say that. For the last several months, and this is okay. I have to be careful with how I.
Yeah,
how
I need you. I need you
stuff.
to be. I need you to be.
So Japan has been building up its navy for the last several years, right? Japan. Everyone thinks that China is the large Oriental power in that area. No, it is Japan. And what Japan considers cruisers are what we consider to be like large helicopter, like LHD, LSD, that kind of thing. So it's funny you mentioned that, because that's exactly what they did. They took an older class LHD, right? Took the helicopters off of it, and now they have a squadron of embarked F-35s.
That's correct.
Which changes the
forward projection of the entire fleet. It really does, guys.
It changes the power of that tenfold, and they didn't have to do a damn thing to the platform itself.
Right.
Took the
you use the current technology that you have, which has greatest over-the-ride targeting known to man. You allow VTOL takeoff, which stops it from having to come from a base, which is 300-400 miles away, which can take 25 minutes, which can take 30 minutes, even at supersonic.
So when you consider like the cost differences to manufacture a Ford class aircraft carrier, and then compare that to like the USS Iwo Jima or some other LHD, don't retire the LHDs. If anything, we start ramping up production on those, right? Embark some F-35s, and all of a sudden you have a platform that could already have taken out battleships. They're cheaper to make,
There it
right?
is.
They have just as much range.
Yep.
Just a thought.
And more. And also more range, because obviously these things can come in at 30,000 feet, which the dome of operation then is more than 500 miles. So that was my thought is, and what's funny is that Thomas really summed it up. Mixed pocket battleship and pocket carrier. No, I'm thinking more mixed battleship and Arleigh Burke destroyer. Technology and speed and overall weapon systems of an Arleigh Burke, but size and displacement of a mini carrier, like a World War II aircraft carrier. A little smaller than that. Leeroy, we gotta move. But interesting thought about that that VTOL takeoff on the back, isn't it? And I noticed that about Japan too. So the United States is seeing things. Someone just said also put nukes in Japan. No, you don't want nukes in Japan. Yeah, because then they become a nuclear target. We've already dropped
twice already.
Yeah, you've already dropped nukes on Japan, right? You don't. It is an No, it's a good joke. It's an isolated island, and if you turn it into a nuclear power, it becomes a nuclear threat. And the only way you take out a nuclear threat is with nuclear weapons. I don't think you want nukes in Japan. No. Mm-hmm. They've got plenty. Japan has kicked China's ass several times. I got 2 more videos to show you, and then we're going to go. This is really good. This is Shapiro and Tucker. I might have 3 videos for you there, Leeroy. I hope you can handle a little bit more. I'm missing my game, and we're doing okay. Folks, if you have not had a chance to donate, please do. Carrie says, thanks, Matt and Leeroy, for your in-depth analogy tonight. We get more than just headlines here. We get a better understanding of current events. I like the rapidity in the pace of the show tonight. Just a constant conversation, constant news, constant information. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this tonight. Seems a lot of people are. We have a lot of late time watchers. Here is PPD on his take on Shapiro and Tucker. The way he puts it a different way than I would. I put it as this. It's kind of like having your wife who you need and your mistress that you don't but want. He compares Ben Shapiro as the wife, and the mistress is Tucker Carlson. He calls him accidentally Charlie here. It's a Freudian slip. We're getting old, folks. Hang with us. Here is the video. It's something interesting to talk about.
Ben came across as the more mature guy here, but it's like you're married to Ben, but you're attracted to Charlie.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense or not. Sense. It's like Ben is the husband, but Charlie's the guy you follow, and you're like, dude, Charlie's a freaking, not Charlie, what do you call it? Tucker is, I just kind of like him. You're attracted to Tucker, but you're married to Ben. Who's going to be the face of the conservative movement? I really don't think Tucker cares to take it.
I don't think so either.
Okay? And I don't think he's the guy. I do think he is in so many people's ear, and he is so, if he wants to, there was a guy I did business with. He was very good at the following line. You ready? So good at doing this. Insurance industry was like, we were the conversation of town. Mm-hmm. And everyone's like, holy shit, this thing's growing. You say, yeah, but. They're doing great, but.
Oh, the yeah, but guys.
And so he created wedges. Is that the right word, Tom? Is that wedges against others? I do think Tucker's playing that game behind closed doors.
Shades here.
I do think Tucker's like, be careful with that guy. Be careful with this guy. And I think he's doing that behind closed doors. He gives me the vibes that he's fully capable of doing that.
Of course.
I usually like PPD's take. I hate this one. Here's let's get yours. Let's keep this to 30 seconds. I'll do 30, and then we'll move on to a couple others. Go ahead.
Patrick Bet-David, I like the guy. I do. I have not seen a lot of his prior material. I have seen some of it. I like the one time he had Nick Fuentes on, and I thought Nick Fuentes was just speaking to an audience. He wasn't speaking from here or here. He was saying what Patrick Bet-David wanted him to say. But in this case, I'm like, I don't follow Tucker Carlson enough or Patrick Bet David enough to offer a educated opinion on it. I don't know them well enough. So I'm going to abstain from this one.
So I will tell you that traditional marriage is not what I would use to talk about the conservative movement. It's not about having the wife that you need and the wife that you may not want to make love to. I think that's a stupid analogy. Ben Shapiro was never my wife. My wife is my confidant. She's my trust. She's a person who excites me. She's a person who infuriates me. And I would never give that power to Ben Shapiro. So I understand I'm getting really granular with this analogy. I would do it this way, is that from a wife's standpoint, Ben Shapiro is the person we need. And Tucker Carlson and Candace Monins is our drunk, lonely cat lady aunt and our Old Spice wearing, somewhat touchy-feely to the kids uncle. And both should be kept at arm's length and only allowed over during the holidays, and then subsequently removed from our lives for a better part of a year. I don't think conservatism is going to be Glenn Beck anymore. I don't think there's a Rush Limbaugh anymore. I don't think there's a Ben Shapiro. I don't think there's a Charlie Kirk out there. When Charlie died, the movement changed, and the movement will now be, in my opinion, the people who are either constitutionalists or those who are not. And that will define who the Constitution needs to lead this movement. It always has been. Individual rights are paramount. Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness is essentially God-given and natural rights. And anyone who does not follow the Constitution of the United States is antithetical to this movement go forward of Make America Great Again. Because the only thing that's going to make America great again is if we get back to law and order and the Constitution of these United States. Anything else is absolutely 100% not going to help us. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. I think that the party has changed quite a bit, that the people that are trying to capitalize on emotions are definitely the Tucker Carlsons, the Candace Owens,
yes,
right? So, and the people that are the constitutionalists, the ones that don't focus on the negative energy, and they just go, all right, this bad thing happened. What does the Constitution say? Where is the infringement on my personal rights? Where does that lie? And then we can inform our opinion from there.
That's right.
Not just react emotionally and say, "Oh, Candace Owens, oh, there was a flight overhead, and that's the person that killed Charlie Kirk." No, we're not doing that. That's crazy lady talk. You belong in a tinfoil hat. We want to be the party. We want to. How can I put this?
Free thinkers and individual personal rights. You said it, dude. We don't really need anyone to think for us.
The idea of individuality and intellectualism when we are considering what is going on in the country, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, and the Constitution.
You don't. Here's the way I'll put it. If politics has become a religion, we don't need the churches, and we don't need the pastors, and we don't need the mega donors to tell us. We need the Bible. Our relationship with God is through the Bible and through learning Jesus Christ is our Savior, Christ is King. The way we get back to freedom, the way we get back to free thinking, the way we get back to personal rights is through the Constitution of the United States, not politicians, not the government, not the feds. It is these books. Now, there's nothing that says we have to worship the Bible.
Yeah.
But we should worship the Word of God, and that is where the Bible comes in. We have to understand that the Constitution is just a piece of paper. The Bible is just a book with paper on it, unless we live vicariously through its existence. Not through politicians, not through talking heads, not through me, not through Leeroy, not through Candace Owens, not through Ben Shapiro. The conservative movement will be owned by the people of this country. That is who owns it. And those are the people we should listen to. And the only way you get that is free thought.
Correct.
Unadulterated free speech. And protecting the personal rights and the individual rights of every single American. That's it. That's the movement. People making it about who has the biggest dick or who has the biggest yarmulke or who has the biggest sultry baby brown crazy fucking Candace eyes is not what we need. Here's the video that shows that Candace Owens is completely off of her rocker. If you still listen to her, you're doing it wrong.
Very disturbing is happening in America. I feel like AmFest is, or what it did for me was it contributed to my realization that the future, the dark future that everyone's always predicting, like the AI future, it's here. We're actually here. I think that we are fighting machines. I think that these people are not humans, that they're sentinels that maybe look like humans. That's how I feel. I feel like it's the single solitary event that contributed to my...
Congratulations. The Q movement is now Candace Owens. CO is the new letters for Q. She has completely embraced the Q methodology. She has taken the Q phenomenon and she is empowered. This is now Q bullshit. She is literally going to start talking about lizards soon and military tribunals. It's all coming. Let me finish this and then we'll talk about it.
Realization that the future is happening right now. Leading people into AI, I have always sensed this demonic because I'm telling you, I don't even think these people are human. Like I look at Elon Musk and Sam Altman and Peter Thiel, and I'm pretty sure they're hybrid. You know what I mean? Like they just look like an Apple software that I should be able to download at night, you know? Like my phone's getting an update or something. It's something in the eyes. Like, I don't know. I'm like, I know I'm human, but I don't know if I stabbed you if you bleed, you know? I'm not going to stab them, but I don't know if they bleed all the way. I think a battery would fall out. You know what I mean? The gap that's between us and the rest of them is essentially they don't know how to behave like humans. You know what I mean? Like we're fighting an algorithm, a computer code that is presenting as a human being, but actually it can't comprehend real human emotion. And the programmers can't quite write the code specifically enough to emulate real human emotion. And so in response, they're just multiplying the sentinels. Like they're sending more of them to say and do things that are obviously abnormal, that are obviously inhumane. And they're hoping that with enough of them pretending like it's fine, they can override our humanity. I know I'm human, but I don't know if I stabbed you if you bleed, you know?
That's your girl.
I would pay, if any dummies out there are adept with AI, I will pay you 10 whole American dollars if you can put together that scene from The Matrix where Neo is sitting across from Agent Smith and somehow put Candace in that chair. Put Candace in substitute of Neo. That way he could say, "We've been watching you for some time now." And, you know, just have that whole scene play out with Candace Owens.
Chick is idiot. She's whacked.
I love it.
Folks, this is the last video for tonight. If you're going to make a donation, please let me know. Avs lost last game, first game that they've lost since, I don't even know, way before Thanksgiving. It's ridiculous. They're losing to Tampa Bay right now. There's 12 minutes left. Avs are tired. Avs have been running a lot of games. They've been going crazy. They need to check it for offsides. I called that a minute and a half ago. You may have heard me. I muted my mic and yelled it to Olivia. They're checking it. Are they checking it? Fuck.
What?
Okay. Sorry. Sorry, folks. Hockey. I'm watching the game. Last video, January 6th. Sorry for cussing. I want my Avs to win, and I want them to they've only lost 3 games all year. They've won 30. They're 32, 3, and 7. This is insane. And I wanted to continue but they've had some really hard luck the last couple games. All right, here is the video we're going to end on, and then we're going to stop.
All right, you ready?
Ready.
Okay. Since the January 6th attack.
Real quick, Michelle says the Stars are losing too. No, the Avs lost 1 game. They are 9-0-1. Dallas is like 3-4-3. They're getting they've fallen off, but the Avs just lost 1 game. They're not losing 2. Sorry, very, very critical about my hockey. Here's the final one. This is funny. Watch this.
All right, you ready? Okay. Since the January 6th attack on the US Capitol, when supporters of Donald Trump stormed this building, trying to prevent the election victory of Joe Biden from being certified. On the anniversary. Oh my God. Oh God, Sam. Oh. All right, you ready?
Yep, when you're ready.
Okay. Since the January 6th,
Michelle, I agree with her. Maybe what you're saying is the Stars are losing tonight. I love you. You know that. I can't stand the Stars. God works in mysterious ways. And that whole J6, 6 years we've had to listen to this. I don't really care about it. It is not important to me. It never was. And we need to move on as a country. Leeroy gets last word tonight. Thank you for your donations. Thank you for, Michelle, I knew what you were saying. I love you, hon. You get last word. Thanks for everyone helping out tonight. Go ahead.
You know, Matt and I, we had talked about this a little bit on the last show, and I think moving into the new year, one thing that I'm going to try and do, one of my personal goals is to deal less and less with a lot of the vitriol and the hatred that seems to be happening more so on the right. I'm going to focus more on the bigger items, the view at 30,000 feet that deals with things like socialism and racism and gun control and abortion. And I'm going to try and do my best to plug that into my current philosophy and the Constitution, and just let it be from there. Like I'm going to go ahead and continue to give you guys my opinion, but I'm going to be a lot more reserved on some of the stuff, just because of how I don't want the show to devolve into another Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens kind of thing where all we do is, and not that we've done that in the past, but I felt like I could, like, there was an urge there to start like mocking just harshly Tucker Carlson, and I don't want to do any of that. I just want to talk about policies and headlines.
I will mock those that deserve to be mocked. But I will not make the entire show about mockery, and I never did. But when I see the entire conservative movement not caring about an election, but caring about who is going to have more airtime and more viewers, I'm going to call it out. When I hear people lie on Charlie Kirk's name just for views, I'm going to call it out. When I hear people make up about lizards and artificial intelligence and cyborgs being in our government, I'm going to call it out. When I hear that an entire election was stolen by Nazis who left and were in Buenos Aires, I'm going to call this shit out because I don't care about people making shit up for opinion, but when you make it up as fact, I'm going to challenge it, because then this show has no meaning. This isn't about show friends. This is show business, and we're going to keep it as business orientated as we can, but we're also going to call it the bullshit when it happens.
Yeah.
Fair
And to your point, I mean, I will simply say, just like, what is wrong with you people? I feel like,
yeah, it's got to happen once
I don't know.
I know what you're saying. We don't need to get down in the dregs with everybody, but when Megyn Kelly's wrong, we're going to tell her. When PBD is wrong, we're going to tell him. And when Tuck or when Cenk Uyghur's wrong, or Bill Maher's wrong, or Schumer's wrong, we're going to call them out too. We call out everybody, and that's okay. It doesn't mean we don't love you. It doesn't mean we don't appreciate you. We just disagree with you wholeheartedly. Okay? Yeah. We're out of here, folks. 1,000%. Good night. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Good night. Tomorrow night, Olivia and I. Bye.
Matt, it was an awesome show. Thank you very much.
It was, dude. I had a blast. I had a good time. Love you, man.
This is the Don't Unfriend Me show with your hosts, Matt, Leeroy, Amy, and Olivia. Geopolitics, military analysis, and election coverage. Coming to you live on all major social media channels at The Dumb Show. Honest, direct, unfiltered. We can agree, we can disagree. Just don't unfriend me.